Okay, now we have John S. with 21 years.
My name's John. I'm an alcoholic, and you're probably going to hear more from me than you really want to just a little bit later. So I'll pass.
Well, now I get to introduce the speaker. John S.
Hi, my name's John. I'm an alcoholic. I'm still an alcoholic. And, when I first came on the program, if I would have seen somebody stand up and say they'd had 21 years of sobriety, I would have undoubtedly figured that was the biggest liar in the whole world, And because there was some people there that had a lot of long-term sobriety, and from where I stood, I couldn't relate to it whatsoever. I mean, Jesus, But, to begin with, this first hour before this pitch time comes up, I know where that saying come from. I feel like a man with a paper butt going to a bonfire. That's kind of the way I feel right now, But I am real happy to be here and to be sober and have the opportunity to share my experiences with you. Because my story overall is one of hope, because I know if you're in a position like I've been during sobriety, sometimes it looks like there's just no way out of this particular mess. But, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're given tools right along, and thank God some of the necessary ones stuck. Like, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle, Then that one alone saved me a lot of times. But, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit to get my head screwed on straight, for Christ's sake. I mean, this is kind of a shattering experience for me anyway. But, to begin with, this long-term sobriety is, I don't know if it's long-term or not. Hell, there's a lot of years, but then I'm 21 years older, too, But if I could have had 21 years when I was 35, hell, I'd have thought there was something to it, you know what I mean? But, that sobriety, that kind of sobriety comes just exactly like any other stage of the game. It's one day at a time, And I have to keep that in mind and never to lose a perspective and get way out ahead of myself, get out there. It's not procrastinating, but it's another word about like it. Thinking out in the future, out ahead of myself. It's bound to get me screwed up. But I'm going to go back a little bit and give you an idea of where I came from. And in my story, there's nowhere in it to indicate that I should become an alcoholic. I mean, there's, as far as I can find in my whole family tree, there isn't anybody with alcoholism that could directly affect me. I've got a lot of cousins that have had the same problem, but as far as I know, there isn't. It just isn't there. But when I was born and raised on a little farm up in Idaho, and that in itself's enough to make an alcoholic out of you. Jesus, the winters up there, you're up to your armpits in snow, and when I was a little kid, we didn't have a lot of these modern day conveniences like tractors, and we had old beat up cars. We had horses, and my dad, he was a tough old fart. He was a little guy, but he was a tough one, and his big thrill on a Saturday afternoon was to go hook a wild one up with an old one and teach that thing to work to the harness, And then he'd take he took me one day out there and put me on this rack and wanted me to ride with him because he thought he was having a grand time, you know, and he wanted to share it with his kids. Why, Jesus. The one place I really wanted to be was on a sleigh behind a wild horse. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, God. But, you know, I think the thing that I look back, you know, when it came out in my inventory, was that there was a lot of fear was a very large thing in my life right from the start. That's something I've had to contend with all my life. And it was one thing, I believe, that when I took my first drink, that all of a sudden I felt like I'd arrived, buddy. I mean, I didn't find a problem when I took my first drink. I found a solution. Because all of a sudden I fit. I fit no matter where I was at or what I was doing. This was it. And it set up an obsession that from that day on, I made up my mind that this life was for me, and I tried my best. Excuse me just a second. But anyway, you know, I went on through high school, through grade school and high school, and I didn't have a whole lot of problems, you know. During my grade school period, why, it was just as normal as could be. I mean, we had a normal home life. Mother and dad, at the age of 12, my mother died. And this was a religious family I was raised in. And I enjoyed going to church, doing these church functions, these things, and I really enjoyed it as a kid. And I'd been taught that God gives, God takes away, and all this other stuff. Well, at the age of 12, my mother died, and it was a traumatic thing for us. And there was 7 of the children, 7 of us. The youngest one was 8 months old, and the oldest one was 17. And I know it devastated the kids, but it was even harder on the dad. But right then is when I drew the line. And I said, okay, now, God gives, God takes away, God took her, screw you. And that was the end of it. From that day on, I rebelled against everything. And anybody started talking church to me, including my dad, man, I want no part of it. And that was the way and then I do believe that my alcoholism set in before the alcohol ever took a hold. Because this was the age of 12 and the age of 14, I tried that first drink. And in that 2-year period of time, I had become totally unbearable to be around. I know I was a teenager. You know, I had teenagers, thank God they got by that stage. When I was going through my little deal, you know, why I talked to my dad, and he says, you got to remember, son, he put it real gentle. He said, you wasn't the easiest thing in the world to get along with at that age either. Well, he was right. But when I took that, the place that I took, we stole the booze to begin with, you know, and I thought it was real fun. You know, we did have a good time stealing it because, well, there's no liquor by the drink in the bars. There's a pool halls, which is a beer joint, you know, and then they had the state packaged goods stores. Well, these old boys would buy this jug, take it and put it in the back seat of the car, go up to the old folks' dance, and then come down at intermission and take a drink. But we saw where they put the bottle, we stole the bottle. It was fun to watch when they come down looking for that bottle. God, they had the seats of the car threw out in the middle of the street. Getting all over the guys that they'd come with for coming down drinking it all, and oh God, it was fun. But anyway, it turned out to be a real party. But anyway, the first time I tried it, I did just like I did every other time after that. I drunk, puked, and passed out all in the same evening, you know. And but like I say, when I took that first drink, I felt something I had never felt in my life, and all of a sudden, all that turmoil in my gut was dead, man. It was stopped. And I can even remember how that warm feeling come out in the end of my fingers, and God, everything come to life, and I felt good. But if a little bit's good, a whole lot's better, and you know what happened. But and all through high school, it was the same rebellion. It was the same way. I got chastised pretty severely about talking about drinking in the huddle when we was playing football. You know, the coach happened to overhear me in practice, and God, he really got after me for that. He didn't think that was a place for that, but that was the way my thinking went, you know. I married a gal right after I got out of high school, and I'd love to take her inventory, I'll tell you. But AA's taught me that that's not the proper thing to do, so we'll just let it go at that. And her dad was a periodic alcoholic, and he was I kind of liked the old guy, you know. The rest of them thought he was kind of a jerk, but I kind of liked the old dude. But that gave her an aversion to this drinking, and she didn't want me touching it in any way, shape, or form. So I had to sneak off and go fishing and go hunting, and, you know. But I managed. Well, you're damn right I managed this kid. You bet. And anyway, we, in 1956, by then we had 2 children, a little boy and a little girl, and I was only drinking periodically then, but the obsession was there. I wanted to drink every day. I wanted to drink every single day because I was miserable. I was miserable. I was so immature and so childish. I didn't have any business with a family. I had no business trying to raise kids or be married because I wasn't much more than a kid myself, you know. But in 1956, things got a little tight in Idaho, and so I left the family up there, and I came to San Clemente here in California to find a job. Well, up there, you know, I don't know if I told you, but my dad, he has also an aversion to my drinking because he was a Mormon bishop. And I tell you, if you want to find a whiskey drinker, just get a bishop's son, and goddamn, they'll teach you how it's done. So between my wife and my dad, I had to go underground with my drinking, you know. But when I got to California, that changed. Then I could do anything I wanted to do, right down the street, if that's what I wanted to do. And but it didn't get out of control. There was a weekend drinking then. And on down the road, why, of course, me and that wife got in a little bit of a hassle, and I can't think of which come first, the chicken or the egg, you know, whether her activities didn't cause my drinking. What the hell am I? You know, I got to be honest about this. I was going to be a drunk no matter what that broad did. Now, I just as well have to. God, I hate this program sometimes, you know. God, can't get away with nothing anymore, you know. But anyway, we was having some peculiar difficulties, and the more the difficulties come on, the more I drank. And it wasn't long she went one way and I went the other way. And when I left, I took with me a box about this big. And that was the total extent of what I got. The judges back then had no sense of humor whatsoever. No, they like that song, you know, she gets the gold mine, you get the shaft. Yeah, well, that's what it was all about. And but anyway, then I began drinking for effect, I missed the kids. I missed those kids real bad. I didn't particularly miss her, but I did miss those kids. But and that there was a period of time there was about 2 years there that I was a daily drinker. That I drank every day, and up until that particular time, I was very reliable. I was on the job every day, doing my job, and I was a I was a plastered plaster. This construction work, you know, is tailor-made for drunks, and it's a way of life. I mean, you know, and so, but when after I got divorced, I wasn't very reliable after that. I mean, I may show up, and again I may not, you know. And at one time, they said they would rather have summers with a hangover than most of these guys you get out of the hall sober. That didn't last long, I'll tell you. Because it got to the point where if I had a drink, had something to do, I had 30 minutes to get it done. Because she's all over with. And there wasn't many times that I didn't take that drink, you know. And so I was running with a bunch of guys, and we were all kind of in the same boat. It seemed like after I got divorced, all my buddies began dropping like flies, God, and they all showed up in Oceano at this shack I was renting down there, the only one they wouldn't kick us out of, so anyway, I began to doing some real binge drinking then, and I got to say this: some of that drinking was bad, but I didn't mind it. I mean, even some of my bad drinking was good, So far, I hadn't really found a problem with alcohol because, hell, I'm still having fun. One time this friend and I, we woke up one morning and, we came to more like it. I say the honesty in this program. But I asked him, I said, how long has it been since we eat? He says, what day is it today? And if I recall, he said, we figured it out to be Thursday. Well, we had eaten the Friday before after I got off work. And we hadn't ate since. Didn't miss it either. So we thought, well, we better go down and get something to eat because we might start feeling funny here. So I went down and like a damn fool, I ordered a tossed green salad, and the lady behind the bar set it up there, and I made one pass at it, and God, I had lettuce strung all over, and she just scooped it up in the pile and set me up a beer. That was the end of that operation, And I met another gal about then that was, I'll tell you, it gets better, Leo. I met another gal about then that was just about as crazy as I was, and I found a real drinking partner there. And, oh, God, we was having all sorts of good times, She had 2 little boys. And, the loneliness that I felt for my kids seemed to transfer right to those 2 little boys because they were little sweethearts, And even right today, they're still my sons. I mean, I consider them as much mine as do any one of my own kids. And they're beautiful kids, but that was a growing experience too, And so I decided, well, okay, now I'm going to shape up, put this thing together, and I'm going to go back to work because there's lots of work here. And I'm going to be a good husband, good father, and all that jazz. Well, that lasted the first thing I tried to do is go get the power turned on at this house we rented. And when they dug out that mess that I had left with PG&E, they said, we ain't turning your damn power on. No way, I owed them money, owed telephone company money. One problem right after another, But anyway, we did move in together, and as a result of that, we had 2 more kids. So that was a 10-year operation there. And that one lasted till I got the program, till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. But there was a time during that period of time, and I'm not right sure which period of time it was, but there was a period of time in that length of time somewhere when I wound up in a little old, I do remember, it was right after I divorced my first wife. One of my friends had a little mobile home up there in Oceano, right next to that bar there, right, just 2 doors down from the beach, which was perfect. And I was laying there one night, and I saw this little red dot out there, And this drinking had been going on for so long, I couldn't even remember when it started. But out there I see this little red dot, and it come in, and it come closer, and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, out of that big thing came the funniest face I ever seen in my life, and I started laughing, And then it grinned at me, and it folded up and took off again. The next night, the same thing took place. And I got to where I was looking forward to this. This seemed to be the only friend I had left, So I laid there, and the last night it showed up, and I see it coming, and I know I'm laying there with a big grin on my face. I'm waiting for my buddy. And that sucker come inside that trailer, and when it opened up, it had a face in it that made Dracula look like a bathing beauty. My God, his nose was twisted off like this and big warts on it and fangs, and all gray and blood coming out of its eyes. And I go right out the door. And now I'm in my shorts, right? And I'm outside and I'm afraid to get back in. I don't know if that sucker's gone yet or not, And here just a few years ago, one of the guys who lived in the mobile home park is still there. And he was still kidding me about the night I was out running around that mobile home park in my shorts. So that I didn't think was too much fun. you know, but it just seemed like other people were talking about seeing things. I thought, well, what the hell, we're all alike, you know. But anyway, in 1965, the work here for me come to a complete stop, because for two reasons. The work had really slowed down here, but the main reason was that I was just not capable anymore of doing it, because I had deteriorated something terrible. I mean, I got to where my intentions were good, but my actions weren't worth a damn. You know, it says in the book that while other people were judging me by my actions, I was judging me by my intentions, you know. And I still thought that I could do this thing, but I'd head for work, and I thought I'll stop by and have one drink before I get there. Maybe that'll give me the strength it takes to get out on that job and do the job, and that was the end of it. That was it. And so I really couldn't get a job around here. I couldn't even buy a job. So a friend of mine called me from Santa Rosa, and he says, come on up, I got lots of work. So I went up there, and again, I made up my mind I was not going to do no more drinking. I was going to stop, because I didn't know I couldn't stop. I really didn't know I couldn't stop. And I'm going to pull my life together. I'm going to get out of debt. I'll get my wife and kids up here, because, again, I left them in in Roy Grande, and I went up there by myself and then come back on the weekends. And all intentions of going up there and shaping up and being a good husband and a good father. And it lasted one trip back to Roy Grande. And down here, I got to talking to a bunch of the guys. Somebody come over with a jug, I'd give her a shot, thought, well, I can have a couple of drinks. I don't even remember getting back to Santa Rosa, you know. And it should have told me something, but it didn't. And it went from there. Finally, my wife, at that time, she got tired of all the problems, and she come to find out she had a drinking problem of her own, and she said, it's time to split. Well, by then, our youngest boy was 11 months old. And I was crazy. I mean, there's no two ways around it. By this time, I am about as insane as you can get. And I promised her that if you take that youngest boy, I'm going to come back there and I'm going to kill you. And the reason I tell you this is because she's as crazy as I was, she left him. And me and another wino, which was a painter, we were living in this old motel. And we got this kid farmed out with some people, the real good family, and they were taking care of him, and I was paying his room and board, okay? Well, just before Christmas that year, I realized through this drunken fog that I was not going to be able to pay these people, because up there it rains a lot and the work had stopped, and that I was afraid I was going to lose him, and I didn't know what else to do. So I called my dad, and he told me, he says, don't move from that phone, stay right there, and I will call you back. And so in about 15 minutes he called back, and he said, no, he says, I'm not going to send you any more money. Can't imagine why in the hell he'd say a thing like that, you know. He says, we'll be down and get you. So he went and got my older brother, and they came to Santa Rosa and picked me and the boy up and took us back to Idaho. And we got back there New Year's Day of 1966. And I've been forever grateful, because in that act alone, my dad saved my life, besides saving my son, because I was totally incapable by then of taking care of anybody. And so I was up there from January and contact with my wife. We'd contact each other. She'd called a couple times. And I didn't realize how much of a problem that she'd run into. But she wanted to come back up and bring the rest of the kids and come on up and try it again. So we did. She arrived up there on my birthday of that year, and I rented a little house and bought an old junker car, and we were going to try it again. And I made up my mind, by God, I'm not going to drink no more. I found a job, which is a pretty good job. I'm not going to do no more drinking. By God, I'm going to straighten up, get my life put together, and I'm going to be a husband and a father to these people. Well, we went a week after they got here. We went up to one of the local steakhouses to have dinner. And she says, let's have a drink before we go in. And I said, you sure you want it? She says, yeah. And I thought, well, a drink really can't hurt much. Little did I know. The middle of that week, I had passed out in a sheep camp outside of town, some goddamn place. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had no idea where I was at. After I got up and looked around, of course, I could see where I was at. But again, I was gone all night, and I'd promised myself and her I would never do this again. And so here I am, I did it again. And this pattern continued, but from that point until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, went downhill. I mean, it was daily drinking. I gathered up pop bottles out of the gutters, beer bottles, tin cans, whatever I could find to hawk, and buy beer with it, or whatever I could get. I'd spend my mornings in the beer halls, in the pool halls, bumming 15-cent drinks, and the most credit they'd let me run was $2.50. Can you believe that? But then we had 15-cent beers. You'd get a lot of them for two and a half, you know. And but anyway, it was the last Christmas that I was drinking before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, which was the Christmas of 1967. I have no recollection of it whatsoever, and to this day I have no idea if those children had Christmas or not. I have absolutely no idea. And the guilt and the remorse and self-hatred from that became so intense, and a friend of mine that I had seen him go through his little thing, and he was sober, you know. Well, actually, to make this real fast, the guy was I've known him all my life, and I knew he was a drunk, but he came in the bar there in town, and he was sober. And I said, "Hi, Bob, come on, sit down, I'll buy you a drink." He says, "I haven't had a drink in over 6 years." But he says, "You know, I think I'll have one tonight." I didn't know he'd been on the program for 6 years. I didn't know. And it wouldn't have made any difference anyway. I didn't know anything about this. And so I bought him a drink, and a few months later, they carted his butt off to the mental hospital. I mean, the guy was a total mess. And I see him do this, you know. And but anyway, when he came back and he got back on the program, and I was in bad shape, and on the 7th day of January, 1968, me and my wife had gotten a little hassle in the town on down the little ways from home, and she didn't like the way I was driving, so I told her to drive. She run us off in the ditch. The roads were slick, you know. God, you couldn't stand up on them much less drive on them, you know. And so we thumbed a ride, got a ride home, and I called this same guy, this Bob, the next morning, and I said, "We got to go get in the car. I said, I'm sick and I need a drink." He says, "I'll pick you up." Well, we went down, pulled my car out of the ditch, and he took me over to his girlfriend's place and got me a drink, because I was coming apart. And of all the, I was mad at her. She had a whole gallon of this wine, and all she gave me is a goddamn thimbleful about that big. And hey, what I want more, you know. But she wouldn't give it to me. But on the way back, he asked me, he says, "Would you like to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous?" And I says, "At this stage of the game, I don't care where I go," you know. And so that night, I went to my first meeting. I didn't stop drinking because even though it was on a Sunday in Idaho and the local option was that there's no beer sold anywhere, I still found it. So, you know, you can't keep a drunk from drinking. And I was real drunk when I went to that meeting. And he came over and picked me up, and I remember going inside, and a number of sober men came up and shook hands with me. And I knew there was something here. I didn't realize, I didn't know what. I had no idea, and I didn't even know I had a problem yet. I knew life was in a hell of a shape, but I had no idea that alcohol had played any part in this. I was still under the delusion that if people, place, and things get off my butt, I wouldn't have to drink. And that was the way I was, you know. And anyway, one of the guys that was at that first meeting of mine that I attended was a guy I'd known all my life. I mean, literally, we grew up in the same area, and he married a girl that just lived down the street, or down the road a ways from us. And I knew the kind of a drunk he was, and for some reason or another, I believed him. I believed what I'd heard around town, that the man hadn't had a drink in a number of years. In a number of years. And here he was at this meeting. Excuse me. And the idea went through my mind, my God, there's something here, you know. And I believed that he was sober. I didn't believe anybody. Much, you know, I really didn't believe anybody, but I believed this guy. And so I knew I wanted to come back. And those people showed me the kind of love that I'd never ever experienced before in my life. They didn't give up on me. Even though they came and got me to bring me to this meeting. See, we had one meeting a week there. That's all we had in that town. And they came and got me and took me to the meeting. I didn't get stopped drinking. See, that was the 7th of January. The 10th of March, I got stopped. And we went to a few meetings in that period of time. Keeps me sober today when times get tough. And, you know, the things that, the things that I heard in those meetings, you know, they very quietly and calmly, and with a lot of love, said, John, you only have to stop one day at a time. You don't have to quit forever. It's just one day at a time. I had a hard time working on that one either, you know, because a day at that stage of the game was forever. That was an eternity. To go a full day without drinking was unheard of. But still, they showed me there was a strength come from these guys, from the people. There was a strength that I had never experienced, you know. The desire was beginning to take hold, that I want to stay sober, and you know, and that gave me a start. I didn't stay sober from that day on. After the 15 days of dry period, I went out for another 5 days. Nothing really happened that time. It just simply verified that what they'd told me was true, that it's not going to get any better, it's going to get worse. And I tried the experiment of the first drink, just like they'd told me. It sets up a compulsion, an obsession sets in, and you have got no control over the next one. And it was true. And it went on. The first year for me in Alcoholics Anonymous was, I think it was probably about a 90-day real bad period of time, and then it went on to a big honeymoon. And there was a few weeks in there that, my God, I was so heavenly, I was no earthly good to nobody, man. Whoop! I got it knocked, you know. And then some sucker pulled a rug out from under me. Oh, Jesus, you know. And it was a process of learning, and I went through a lot of heavy depression that first year and a half. A lot of depression. And there was times that the only thing that kept me sober was the fact that I remembered what I'd went through and the kind of a guy that I was when I was drinking. And I did not want to ever be a part of that again. As of today, I still feel the same way. I don't never want to go back to being what I was before, ever. And, you know, there was a lot of things took place over the period of time in my sobriety. You know, I think I went through pretty much the normal thing that most everybody goes through. It took me 5 years to find out exactly where I was really at. You know, the first year was just a matter of finding out how sick I really was, you know. And in the second year, some growth began to take in place. But I have to tell this part of my story because it was very important. When I did my steps the first time around, I realized, after going in and out as many times as I did, that if I don't do something, I'm going to die. And so I didn't really have much direction in the way of doing the steps. So I took the book. I'd never seen a 12 and 12. And I took the book and I did the very best I knew how with it. And what it amounted to was reading them and saying, okay, I did it. Okay, I did it. And I got this. Yeah, well, okay, I'll turn my will. You know, they tell me I'm nuts, all right, so I'm nuts. You know, and it was a screwed up job. But this one thing I'll tell you, it kept me sober for 14 years. And a lot of that, I would suggest to any newcomer that is serious about their sobriety and wants the fullest that Alcoholics Anonymous can give, my suggestion would be is to get into them steps with your sponsor at the very earliest convenience and do the best you can, because in my opinion, for what it's worth, there's no wrong way to do it. There is no wrong way. And so the way I did it was not the proper way that it should have been done maybe, but it was all I could do at the time, and that was all that was required because I did stay sober. 14 years later, well, it took me up till I was 8 years sober to figure out why in the hell they put them in order like that. I mean, I'm not really a hard learner or anything, but that's what happened, you know. And during that period of time, I began to having a lot of good feelings. I left Idaho and came back to Bakersfield, and that was in 1972. And went to work down there. A friend of mine called me again, the same guy. Said, come on down and go to work, so I did. And then when work died out there, I came back here, this is where I had, and the reason I think this took place is because God knew that there was a lot of amends that I needed to make right here in this area, because this is where it got out of control. And there's a whole story about how I happened to get back here, but there isn't time. But the fact is, through a series of events, I wound back up like a full circle, right back where I started, where my drinking really got out of hand. And I'm grateful for that, because it's given me a chance to make amends and regain my reputation in my trade again, which I'm very, very grateful for that. But, you know, I've had a little trouble with these relationship things. Now, I don't know if anybody else knows what I'm talking about or not, but God, we was in a meeting one time and somebody said they was praying for a relationship. I thought, God, I've been praying to get out of them for the last 10 years, you know. But see, I didn't leave all my old stuff behind. Now, these women weren't all bad. Now, let me tell you. There was definitely maybe a little problem right here. See? But anyway, when I had an accident, and that accident led to another one, and I had to have I've had to have 3 operations, 3 surgeries, and the second one was very unsuccessful, and it crippled me. And I was married again at the time, and during this period of time, my kids found out what the wacky tobacco was all about, you know, and oh, the goon juice was good, and all this shit. And the next thing you know, I've got some kids that are raising hell. And I'm in a sick marriage to start with. And my life, I'd gone from, and see, I'd lost my business due to this accident, and I was making a lot of money. I was making good money. And I went from that financially right down to welfare, so to speak, as Social Security, you know. And that's a hell of a drop. But at this period of time, I knew I could feel my life starting to, it was on the skids. And I kept saying to myself, what the hell is happening? You know, what's going on? Why is this happening? And the further it went, the worse it got. And by the time I felt like I'd reached the end, I mean, this particular bottom was every bit as painful, though different, than the one that brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had been sober for a number of years. But I laid there in that bed, and I could hardly move, and these kids are raising hell, and this marriage is good, no good, and I'm broke, and I was at a point where I had nothing else that I could do but say, God, whatever you got in store is good enough, you know. At that point, I learned how to trust God, and I learned what it was all about to say, I surrender, okay? Your will is whatever that is for me is okay. If I got to stay this way forever, fine. I can't fight no further. And, you know, a lot of good things took place after that. The first thing that took place was they found a doctor that could help me. As you can see today, I'm standing in front of you, and I've been standing here for, well, 30 minutes or so, you know. No way this could have happened before. No way. And so that part of my life began to take in shape, and I got up, and I could start exercising again and getting my strength back. The kids, they just went. And for some reason or another, I felt release. I had released them to do their thing, whatever it may be. They got to write their own story. The only thing I said is, God, if they got to die, let me know where they're at, you know. And the marriage, it dissolved, and I moved out of that house, and I moved right back within 2 doors of that little trailer house that I had that pretty orange moon that kept coming in to visit me. I wound up right back in the same trailer park and broke. I got my old Ford pickup, and I've never been happier in my life. You know, all of a sudden, life is beautiful. One thing I hung on to during that crisis period, and some of the new people, or maybe some of the older people, is going through some real problems. From my experiences, I found that no matter what comes down in this life, no matter how bad it gets, something good will come out of it. There will be some growth, there will be some acceptance, there will be something come out of this that will be so far beyond your expectations you'll never believe it. And that's what's happened today. Today, you know, this little picket fence and the puppy dog and my wife and the kids, that has eluded me all my life. And in a way, I'm glad, you know. I never was a stereotype. I couldn't fit that pattern. But today, I have got the home. I've got a beautiful wife, one that even loves me. Can you believe that? Huh? My God, what's even better than that, I love her too, you know? And we had a dog, but she died. And let me tell you, it broke my heart. I mean, this dog was big enough, I could tell you how big that dog was, but I won't. There's nice people present right now. But she was a real lover, you know? And all my life, being from a farm and animals all over the place, I never learned any affection for anything, for any animal. They were usable, they were useful until they were no use at all, then they were dead. Gone to the fox farm, gone to sale, you shot them, one of the two. There was just no place for them. And this old dog taught me how to love. And God, if she wasn't a sweetheart, she had the ugliest face you ever seen in your life, but she was a sweetheart, you know. And she's buried out behind the house out there. And by God, she's going to stay right there. That's hers. But, you know, financially, I ain't wealthy by no means, but it seems like my daily needs are met every day. I don't miss a meal, it's only through the grace of God, you know, and a lot of good people. Now, I see Dave down there. Dave helped me out during that crisis period. And, you know, what worked for me at that particular time to pull me through some of these hard spots, I'm passing this on because I hope somebody might can use it. If you get in a tight where you got no direction to go, just go to meetings. One a night for 30 days if you have to. But I'll tell you, your problem will be solved at the end of that time. It has worked that way for me, you know. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this fellowship and have the opportunity to share my experiences, strength, and hope with you. And I can't think of a better time to say thank you very much.